Everything he said about me and more is true. To Commissioner Price and to the District Attorney, to Congresswoman, and to everybody else gathered here, you my brothers and sisters, we are here today for serious business. I know it's hot out there. It's getting hot in here. So take off all your woes. I know it's hot out there, but it is hot in America right now. We are here for justice for a young brother who fell under the cloud of suspicion. He fell under a cloud of suspicion because when we are born as black and brown people, we are born as suspects. Suspicious of our humanity, because when they brought us here, they didn't think we had souls. We were cattle and chattel and property to be owned. Then we were suspected not having intelligence, as if we didn't have what God gave everybody else in terms of our brain. They didn't just murder Trayvon, they also lynched Rachel.
Let me get one more.
Jantel, acting like they couldn't understand her. You understand it when Snoop says, "For shizzle my nizzle." You understand Tupac, you understand Busta Rhymes, but you can't understand Rachel Jantel. You can exploit us on television, you can listen to our hip-hop culture, you can see LeBron's black body perform poetry in space, but you can't understand Rachel Jantel saying she was talking to a boy who was running for his life. You understand, you just don't believe. The suspicion of black intelligence, the skepticism about black humanity are the basis of Western civilization. And what we have done from the very beginning is argue our case in the court of human opinion against the indictment of our intelligence and humanity. So don't act like we don't understand what it means for Trayvon to be suspected of doing something wrong. Because when we operate in America, the suspicion of our intelligence and humanity means that we are not treated with fairness and equality and justice until we demand it. Even the President of the United States, who finally spoke up, I got him on my chest. I knew him when you called him Obama. I knew who he was then. I was his surrogate twice. I stood for him. It's about time the White House stood for the black realities and the tragedies that we have to face in America. I love my president, and he did something brilliant yesterday. First he said Trayvon could have been his son, but then he made a philosophical shift. He said Trayvon could have been me. Just in case you forgot, all of the lovely white brothers and sisters who look at him as an exceptional Negro, as somebody who falls outside of the pale, not like them other niggas. That's not what he was saying. He was saying, I'm one too. I'm with them. That could have been me. If they had lynched Obama, he would not have been a president. If they had murdered Obama, he would not have stood here in brilliance and dignity to stand up to articulate the truth of American democracy. So now, those who have stood with Obama finally feel the president standing with us. They treat him like Trayvon too. He tried to put a bill forward, they kill it on the ground. He tries to express his belief in American democracy, and they say he ain't even American. You gotta believe he's Trayvon. You gotta believe they keep lynching and murdering and assassinating his character. And if they do it to you, Mr. President, We are slaughtered like sheep, and yet we rise. Like Trayvon, we understand that we are beautiful human beings. Like his parents, we must protect our children. Why don't you stop profiling your own kids?
Thank you. Thank you. Speak life into them.
Why don't you stop George Zimmering your own children? You are profiling your children because they listen to some hip-hop and like Trayvon put a picture of themselves up as a thug. We know he wasn't no thug. What's more thuggish than an American culture that would exploit black people for 300 years and then give us the right to vote and then take it away? Trayvon wasn't no thug. He was a young child born, living, expressing himself. Why judge a 17-year-old child by 40-year-old standards? Some of us ain't even grown up now, still playing like we a thug or a criminal. Why indict Trayvon Martin? And we know our children are not viewed the same way. When Brother Corey from Glee dies from an overdose, on television there are specials. Our precious child, born beautiful, and he is brilliant, but it's a brain issue, they say. The heroin was an addictive characteristic in the medulla oblongata, and as a result of the infrastructure of consciousness, he is now attracted to stuff he can't say no to. But when Whitney Houston dies, she's just a crack addict. They medicalize addiction as they should in the majority culture and criminalize our children. Trayvon Martin has been profiled by you. Looking at your kids with their drooping drawers. Maybe they wear them to cover bodies that will be murdered by watch patrol men. Maybe if you lifted their dreams, their pants would follow. You help create a culture that stigmatizes your own kids. Stop it! And then, my brothers and sisters, we are all Trayvon. All of us at any moment could be assaulted by somebody who doesn't know our name. And they act like black folk ain't been speaking out against black-on-black violence. Where you been? We've been doing that from the beginning because we learned to hate ourselves from a white supremacist culture that taught us not to love ourselves. We've been speaking out against black-on-black violence. We've been doing that every Sunday in church, every Saturday in temple, every Friday. We've been doing that. That does not justify the arbitrary use of a law. And I'm almost done. A law, stand your ground, invented with the help of ALEC, which is the legislative body that feeds laws across the country. Conservative, reactionary, and racist. And they have in mind the control of our bodies. Now what we must do is change that law. We must operate by voting not just for Obama, not just in midterm elections, but for state legislators who create laws that condemn your children. Tupac said just the other day, I got lynched by some crooked cops. And to this day, them same cops on the beat getting major pay. But when I get my check, they taking tax out. So we paying the cops to knock the blacks out. And that's why our wonderful president spoke up yesterday. He said as a president and as a politician, nobody will move until you make them. Black folk ain't been making them. You better make them now. A speech is great. Change behavior is better. A talk before the press conference is wonderful. Public policy is better. A conversation, a conversion, an insight shared, and a continual use of your bully pulpit to defend American citizens who happen to be black. We voted 96 and 97% now stand for us. And as I take my seat, I'll tell you this. Trayvon is our precious, beautiful son. But we recognize that some people think that they hear the voice of God to kill our children. George Zimmerman said it was all in God's plan. This guy in the Hebrew Bible named Abraham said he heard a voice, thought it was the voice of God, saying, prepare your child to be slaughtered and sacrificed. But then when he was about to do the deed, after his son looked around and said, where the lamb at? And he said, God will provide. And then when he was about to do the deed, because sometimes just because you hear the voice of God don't mean you heard the voice of God right. God had to give him another lesson and say, don't slay your son. Because sometimes when you hear God's voice, you ain't hearing it right. You're hearing it through your tradition. You're hearing it through your race. You're hearing it through your class. You're hearing it through your desire. And George Zimmerman heard God's voice through his bigotry. But God had a ram in the bush. You thought you murdered Trayvon. You didn't murder Trayvon. We gonna help murder through a ram in the bush the laws of this society that damn our children. That's what we're gonna murder. They killed Jesus as a criminal. God raised him as a Christ. That's what we must do, and we must keep on the road.